Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your man of the hour, the man with the power, the living legend of video game vloggery. Hello, my name is Lee Hazel and this is Klaus, or as it's written on here, Dash Klaus Dash. I wonder if that was intentional. This is a 2D side-scrolling platformer from Lacosta Entertainment. What they have described as an existential platformer. We'll have a look later in the game and see what that means. This is a demo version of Klaus. You can see just written a little below the K there, you can see the demo. This video series, I'm not entirely too sure what I'm going to call it yet, is going to be focused on free-to-play games, free experiences, and demos are going to feature quite heavily. And when we do review a demo, we're going to have a look at whether or not this demo actually does its job, whether it explains the mechanics, whether it explains its premise, whether it entices us and wants us to play more of it, and to actually put money down for the experience. So we're going to press X to start. We're going to grab a new game because I've already gone through this a couple of times. There are worse ways to open up the premise of a video game. Just simply typing out in front of you. Okay. I'm using the D-pad to move. Apparently that's not what you have to do. You have to use the analog sticks. Okay, yeah, so I don't know whether or not you can hear the noises that are actually coming out of the 6-axis here, but Klaus never actually says a word on screen. Everything he says actually comes out of the speaker of the 6-axis. Now that's one of the reasons that this game even exists. I don't know if any of you guys remember during the days of the PlayStation 3, Sony brought out a brand new controller called the 6-axis, which had motion controls in it. And a lot of the games that they had published themselves at the beginning of the PlayStation 3's life was to show off the mechanical feasibility of the 6-axis of the 6-axis motion controls. And I think most of you, if you do remember them, will remember most of them being a complete failure. I seem to remember the Uncharted series having a mechanic where you use the motion controls to throw a grenade, but they decided not to pursue that in the sequels. There was another game called I think it was Lair, that was about you flying as a dragon, but instead of flying as a dragon with, you know, like a sane person would do with the analog sticks, you actually had to do it with the 6-axis motion control. Anyway, since they brought out the DualShock 4, there's not been as many of those things, as many of those kinds of games made, but there have been a few that try to showcase the capabilities of the DualShock. Here we go, here's one. The DualShock 4, when it came out, the biggest unique feature, there were a few of them, but the biggest one was the touchscreen. Now, if we use the touchscreen here, look, you get can use it like a little mouse. Get a little cursor, use it like a little mouse. Unfortunately, if I start at the bottom screen here and I go up and across, and then I take my finger off, and I put my finger back down on the touchpad, I don't start off where my cursor left off, like I would usually expect with this kind of mechanic. I go back to where the screen maps to the touchpad itself. This to me isn't the most intuitive use of this, and frankly, the way that Klaus uses it, me having to stretch my thumb over every now and again to assist me with barriers and blockades and platforming, doesn't really make the greatest of impressions on me. It's uncomfortable, it feels awkward. Now this is one of the other things. They call this an existential platformer, and Klaus throughout the entire game, the person he's speaking to with these little type-faced quotes is actually you, the player. Now, this is an existential platformer, which means they're going to be asking us all sorts of questions about reality, the nature of existence, free will, maybe a little bit. I suspect there's going to be a little bit of a Freud psychology here with the id and the superego. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But yeah. This is one of those games that's got a running button. It's a platform with a running button, and it actually picks up a lot of pace when you hit the run button, and after that the walk mechanic just seems a little bit too sluggish. So even though it's a lot less precise to use the run, it makes the game a lot more fun. Playing this game, talking to you guys on the microphone, and okay, that's playing this game, talking to you guys on the microphone, and reading like the little story pieces is actually quite difficult to do. So I'm kind of ignoring the story right now. Another thing that these touchscreen segments do, these touchpad segments do, is when I gain control of it, I can use the right analog stick to move a platform. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to take control of it with the touchpad, and then I'm going to move it with the analog stick, and then I'm going to try and not hit my head on the spikes. I have a good eye. I've played this demo like 3 times already. That's how I have a good eye. That was a complete misstep there. Okay, so yeah, every single one of these little platforms that you can manipulate, you basically know what they do by the arrows on the side of them, or the little symbols. They let you know what's going on. Although, and I'll get to this in a minute, using one analog stick to move your character, another analog stick to move a platform, can sometimes get a little bit complicated, and remembering which analog stick you have to move often causes a lot more frustration than it should do, and a lot of instant death. I think if you're going to have a hacking mechanic in a game like that, it should either just be a straight up button press, or it should be a lot more involved. Oh, you can actually drop down. I just did a little never had to do that before, so I just did a little experiment, and yes, when you stand on a translucent platform and press down and jump, you can indeed jump through, as I have come to expect from video games like this. Yeah, we're also not just using them, yeah, a good thing that a demo does is it explains the mechanics, almost hit the dirt on that one. It explains the mechanics gradually. So here, we've seen we don't just use the platforms to get around, we also use these kinds of platforms to yeah, block off any, shield ourselves from any enemy projectiles, any hazards, anything of that nature. Yeah, but this hacking minigame here, like, this should either be a button press. Oh Christ, what have I done? Have I done this properly? Oh, okay, there we go. Right. You can turn things on and off with the hacking. Yeah, sorry. A hacking minigame should either be a proper game, or it should just be literally a button press. You shouldn't have to, like, sit there, hold for 2 or 3 seconds. It really breaks up the pacing of the game. We're just gonna have a look in here, see what this is. Okay, so this is a bonus stage. And if the bonus stage, if I remember correctly, they all have their own little mechanic. They all play around with the mechanics of Klaus in their own little way. So I think here, if I press left, I go left. But if I press right, I also go left. So basically every single button press, at least directionally, yeah, jump still means jump, but every directional button press I have all make me go left. So if I need to go right, I've got to figure out how to get there. So here we go. The little hacking thing there, which, yeah, it just, if you're going to do that, like, you either give it an element of win and loss, you either give it something where the player can actually develop a skill, or you just run up to it, hit the button once. Like the whole thing where you have to, shit. Yeah, the whole thing where you have to stand there for 2 seconds doing basically and practically nothing is not that great of a time. Skipped ahead a little bit there because I got a little bit stuck. Crap. Yep. Just trying to make like these little very small adjustments to the platforming, and that's what, because they're instinctual. You see, just trying to stop yourself from going over a ledge by pressing the right button when you're going to go left regardless is just this. It's almost like a self-preservation mechanic, instinct that we've developed in our own heads. So I'm just going to try and jump up on this thing. And I'm going to go up one. I'm going to try and get over that. Crap. I've played this 2 or 3 times and that thing scares me every single time. Well, little treadmills here. And little presses that as soon as you get near them. Okay, there we go. No! No! Oh. Right, I've got to try and avoid that entirely because otherwise you're just going to get ripped to pieces. I didn't check for the spikes there. If I had just jumped and the spikes had been on the top side, I would jump straight into them. Okay, now this is where this kind of platforming gets tricky and complicated. Now the last few times I did this, I had to restart this level so many times because I keep forgetting it's the right analog stick that moves the platforms along, not the left analog stick. So I kept sending poor Klaus there to his doom. Even after speaking about it, that's precisely what I managed to do. Now... oh, this might be a while. See, the thing is, what I think I've got to do is I've got to try and jump off, like, just gently go off there. Because otherwise... I would really like to see how the developer does this, because I think I can see about 2 or 3 ways of completing that level, and I wonder which one they would recommend, or the one that they intended. Because if you were quick enough on the timing, you could put this platform under there, and then while you were Klaus, you could jump off of the yellow platform dive onto where the saws are coming out, and if you're quick enough, dive straight back up again. Yeah. That's the one. I've been doing that a completely different way this entire time, and I get the feeling that I was doing it in a completely different way to what the developer intended me to. So anyway, we're going to see what's in this one again, because these ones are all really interesting. They all, some of them develop a mechanic of the game, but a lot of them actually develop some of the themes. So if we go here, like we can see here, if we, those are red letters, those are red spikes, don't go near them. So many questions, no answers. There is so much to discover. And then we've got a jump we can't possibly make. So what we have to do is, you have to take a leap of faith. Feel, think, create, knowledge. And if we land on a negative word, then we die. And apparently in the world of Klaus, there is no more negative word than that of ignorance. Little secret I am remembered from the last time I played the game. Those things only start moving, like, they only move if they're near you. Some of them move all of the time, but some of them like to trap you. Some of them like to just give out that little breath of steam just to indicate the fact that they are about to crush you, not giving you that much time. And so yeah, I think Klaus is at its strongest at the moment when it's trying to challenge you with a platform rather than a puzzle. Because the puzzles all involve the the touchpad in some way. But now, hopefully, I think we're going to see something with a little bit more variety to it. Yeah, here we go. Now this is the real meat of Klaus. This is where Klaus really gets into its own groove. This little world basically changes the infrastructure of Klaus and uses that change to create some really interesting ideas. So if I go down there, you can see every time I go through the edge of the world or the edge of the screen, I come back out through another part of the screen. So I've made a bunch of little puzzles that all have to do with that. And now, from going off of the edge of the world, to a door that moves as you move. And that's just a little taste of the kind of things that Klaus plays about with. And yeah, this is one of the things the demo does really well, because now I'm actually really intrigued to see how far they take this. So now we've got a little thing on the wall saying the function Klaus.dead.removeBody is not a valid function. So if we see what happens when we utilize that function, when we come back, unlike every other time we've died, now our corpse has not been removed. But we can use the corpse. Klaus can use his own corpse to protect him from spikes. There's something a little bit Rick and Morty-ish about that. I don't know if you guys are spoilers for Rick and Morty, by the way, when Rick and Morty, in order to save themselves from oblivion, have to insert themselves in a reality that is not their own. A reality where they have just died, and Rick and Morty have to bury their own corpses so no one suspects what's happened to them. Hell of a thing watching young Morty bury himself and realise that there's no real meaning or existence in the world. And this is the most interesting part of the game, where Klaus decides he's not going to listen to your inputs anymore. See, Klaus throughout the entirety of the game has always realised that somebody else is pulling his strings, that somebody else has been the guy in charge of his actions, his body, his decisions. And now Klaus is not having it. So instead of controlling Klaus, we now have to control the world around Klaus to make sure that while he continually marches forward, he doesn't kill himself. Okay, I did a bad job of it there, but you understand the general gist. Now, the problem I've got with this sort of thing is that it doesn't really say that much about Klaus's place in the universe, about Klaus's own ability to control his own actions and his own body. Because obviously, he isn't doing this, the developer's doing it for him. He's got no intelligence, he's got no will of his own. All he's doing is he's moving forward. He's not got any other kind of function, just moving forward into whatever obstacle that could end him off. And I don't really have much purchase with that in trying to propel this game's ideas about existentialism, about free will, about agency and control over your own actions. This is a decent little change to the mechanics as well. This time you don't actually get a signal to show where you're going to respawn after you die, which made me made me a lot more careful about where I was going and where I was heading to next. Didn't stop me from dying though. Does require a bit of precision, this game, I have to say. Probably more than the controls. Kind of like I'm comfortable with controls of these of this magnitude, of these precision. The controls aren't very precise, is what I'm trying to say. Walking along as Klaus is very sluggish, and then the momentum you pick up when you're running along as Klaus is actually, it's a hell of an acceleration. And then jumping with him, you've got quite a bit of control in the air when you're jumping, but not an awful... You do have a lot of control over them, but changing direction and movement in the air is actually quite slow. So trying to make precise jumps, trying to get precisely from narrow platform to narrow platform is a little bit tricky, is a little bit hard. And coupled with the blatant use of the 6-axis. The blatant use of the 6-axis mechanics and the functionality within these 6-axis it can make Klaus a bit of an uncomfortable experience at times. And here we've got Klaus. Like, this is basically a cutscene. Okay, we've glitched out here at the minute, because I know for a fact that there's a lot more to this scene than just it's here, my body needs it. So what I'm going to do, restart the section. No, that ain't gonna do it. Exit game. Because this demo, like a lot of other demos, leaves you off with quite a big tease and then a... yeah, okay, this ain't gonna happen whatsoever, is it? So we're just gonna exit the game outright. Hopefully we won't restart in that level and get caught in this continuous loop. Apparently we are. Okay, right, I'll just finish my final thoughts. Anyway. This demo ends... with Klaus discovering what was behind the shadows, and I'm not going to actually spoil it for you here. I think they give a little too much away in the trailer. I don't think, well, like it's this big thing, it's this big shock, it's kind of like this big surprise, and they give it away in the trailer. And I think I was actually thinking about putting money down for this title, based on trying to find out what that monster was and what the surprise that the demo just cuts out before it reveals shows you. I'm not great with that. I think that I like mystery in my games. I like a little bit more that I can look beyond the curtain with. That entices me into buying a product. So yeah, the fact that Klaus fails, the demo of Klaus in the very last few seconds fails to give you that, pulls the rug out from under you, yeah, that's a couple of points against it as well. But otherwise, I actually, if there's one reason I like this game, it isn't the platforming. I think is a little too imprecise. It's actually the existentialist ideals that are at the forefront of Klaus's existence. Who is he? Where is he? What is the purpose of him being there? Who put him in that position? And yeah, I think one of the things that I will say, just a little thing, the fact that he's wearing a shirt and tie, gives the whole thing a little bit of a sort of Stanley Parable-ness to it. A little office worker trapped in a dull, boring, monotonous life has to take orders from some other omniscient being, i.e. you, the player. And how does that factor into the player's own free will, to the player's own agency, not just within games but also within real life? And that's actually, I think, the most enticing prospect of Klaus. Anyway guys, thank you very much for listening to all of my ramblings. Thank you very much guys, and I'll see you all next time.